Meghan Markle stuns in strapless navy gown and Princess Diana's earrings on glamorous night out with Prince Harry. So Harry and Meghan made a show-stopping appearance on the red carpet last night to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the David Foster Foundation in Victoria, Canada. And Meghan looked so stunning in her navy off-the-shoulder cape gown by Canadian designer Greta Constantine. And Meghan's red carpet look was so minimal and very chic, yet simple and still very elegant. And Meghan also swept her hair up into a polished updo and wore a pair of sapphire and diamond earrings that previously belonged to her late mother-in-law, Princess Diana. And also Harry was in a classic black tuxedo and bow tie. And they both posed alongside their longtime friends on the red carpet, David Foster and Catherine McPhee. And you've got to remember, David Foster was the gentleman who helped Harry and Meghan find a rental property in Vancouver. And the house they stayed in on Vancouver Island, that is the place that David Foster found for them to rent out for Christmas in December 2019, because they wanted to spend Christmas. They wanted some time away from the toxic British press, the media, the members of the royal family who were briefing against them. And they stayed on the island in Vancouver. But obviously the British press followed them out there. The Daily Mail followed them out there. The Daily Mail hired private detectives to go and harass Harry and Meghan. They had people walking up to the front door, trying to get onto the premises, trying to get a photo of Harry, Meghan and the children. They had helicopters going over. They had drones, everything. And it just shows you that Harry and Meghan are the real deal, because you're not going to go and follow a pair of useless morons. And it just shows you that Harry and Meghan have got the whole package, because why would the press follow them if they were boring and uninteresting? They wouldn't, but they did. So it just shows you what the press and the media say about them is just completely not true. Harry and Meghan are the top royal couple ever. I'm afraid they're bigger than Princess Diana and Charles. I mean, Princess Diana was absolutely iconic. She was absolutely beautiful and radiant, and the work she did was absolutely phenomenal and fantastic. But for me personally, I just think Harry and Meghan have just got that extra oomph. They're such a powerful, strong couple. I mean, what they've been through, they're just so strong. And it's like Meghan's made Harry the man he is today. I mean, obviously, Harry was always very committed with his work and everything, but I think Meghan showed him what was wrong and what was right. And she said, look, it's not right what your family are doing to you. You need to have a life. You need to thrive. You need to be happy, Harry. You can't be ordered about and told what to do all the time. And I just wanted to talk about this photo, because this is obviously a photo that I chose from Getty Images, and it hasn't been photoshopped, because you can see it there. And it's of Harry and Meghan posing on the red carpet, and they look madly in love, very close, very touchy-feely. And what more can you say, really? Meghan said that once, look, we're just a couple who are sharing their love story, and people can't see that. The trolls, the haters, the media, the press, everyone keeps saying that they're getting divorced. I mean, really, how can you say that when you look at this photo? This photo to me just says, we're happy, we're thriving, we're not splitting up, we're strong, we're carrying on forever until, obviously, when they have to part at the end of the day, when we all do. But they're not going anywhere. They're a happily married couple. And look at Meghan's hand, how she's got it on Harry's chest. And you never see this with William or Kate. You never, all the times we've seen them on the red carpet, William and Kate, no touching, no closeness, no touching at the back. It's very off, it's very reserved, and obviously all you get is, oh well, it's protocol, it's duty, they've got a job to do, they haven't got time to muck about and be all lovey-dovey. I mean, what does it cost to just love your wife and show how much you love her just by touching her back or something? Anything just to show that you love her deeply. But you never see that with William and Kate. And I don't think they could ever pull off a photo like this, William and Kate, because I think William hates Kate so much. He actually despises her, because another story's come out today saying that Kate moved out and went back with her to her parents' house.
Now, let's talk about what actually happened here, because I already know what some of the headlines are going to do. Meghan's dress, Meghan's jewelry, Meghan's hair, Meghan and Harry on the red carpet, who was standing where, who looked better, who wore what. And somehow, after all that noise, people might forget the biggest reason these two were even there in the first place: families. Harry and Meghan didn't turn up in Victoria just to have a glamorous night out and pose for a few cameras. They were there to support the David Foster Foundation and its work helping Canadian families with children who need life-saving organ transplants. Now that is worth talking about. Because imagine being a parent in that situation. Your child is sick. You're worried about whether they're going to make it through the next operation. You're dealing with doctors, hospitals, bills, travel, accommodation, work, stress, everything hitting you at once. That is real life. That's not some silly celebrity argument on social media. That's somebody's actual child, somebody's son, somebody's daughter, somebody's entire world. And that's why I think Harry and Meghan showing up matters. They have the ability to walk into a room and instantly attract cameras. People want to know what Meghan is wearing. People want to know what Harry is doing. People are zooming in on the jewelry. They're analysing the photographs. They're discussing the couple before they've even left the building. Fine, let them talk. Because while everybody is looking at Harry and Meghan, the charity gets attention too. And that is the smart part. Use the spotlight, don't run from it. Point it somewhere useful. That's something regular people understand. If you've got a microphone and somebody needs to be heard, pass them the microphone. If you've got an audience, use that audience. If people are watching you, give them something worth watching. Harry and Meghan have enormous visibility, so why not use that visibility to shine a light on families dealing with situations most of us can barely imagine? And honestly, I love the fact that Meghan can walk onto a red carpet looking absolutely stunning, wearing those beautiful Diana earrings, and still have the conversation come back to something bigger than fashion. Because yes, Meghan looked gorgeous, let's not pretend otherwise. The woman stepped onto that carpet and said, yes, I came dressed for the occasion. Harry cleaned up nicely too. The man understood the assignment. But underneath all the glamour, there's something much more important happening. People are being helped. And that's where I think regular people can connect with this. Most of us aren't living in palaces. Most of us aren't getting invited to fancy galas. Most of us aren't walking down red carpets with photographers shouting our names. But we understand family. We understand worry. We understand what it means when somebody you love is going through a difficult time. And we understand the difference between somebody simply showing up for a photo and somebody using their presence to support something meaningful. That's why I wouldn't get distracted by all the noise around this appearance. Don't let the dress become the entire story. Don't let the jewelry become the entire story. And don't let the usual Harry and Meghan are seeking attention crowd convince you that attention is automatically a bad thing. Attention can be useful, especially when it lands on people who desperately need it. If Harry and Meghan's appearance gets more people talking about the David Foster Foundation, if somebody discovers the organization because they saw Harry and Meghan on that red carpet, if another person learns about the families receiving support, then guess what? The spotlight did its job. And that's the part I think gets missed. Harry and Meghan don't have to pretend they're invisible to prove they're serious about charity. They don't have to arrive looking miserable. They don't have to hide behind a curtain. They can dress up, they can smile, they can enjoy themselves, they can celebrate with friends, and they can still care deeply about the cause. Both things aren't mutually exclusive. You can have a beautiful evening and still remember why you're there. You can laugh, you can take photographs, you can look fabulous, and you can still put your name behind something that helps families when life gets incredibly difficult. That's called being human. And frankly, I'd rather see that than another endless argument about who is allowed to be happy, who is allowed to succeed, or whether Harry and Meghan are somehow supposed to disappear from public life just to make certain people comfortable. No, they're here. They're supporting their friends. They're supporting families. They're using their visibility, and they're doing it together. So let the tabloids count the earrings. Let the commentators inspect the dress. Let social media debate every photograph down to the last pixel. Meanwhile, there's a foundation doing work that can genuinely change a family's life. That's the story I want to talk about. Because at the end of the day, Harry and Meghan didn't just walk onto a red carpet. They walked into a room where their visibility could help shine a light on families going through something incredibly difficult. And if that's what happens when Harry and Meghan show up, then by all means, give them the spotlight.
Now, squaddies, we have to talk about those earrings, because Meghan stepped onto that red carpet wearing Princess Diana's sapphire and diamond earrings, and honestly, that detail changes the whole vibe. At first glance, somebody might say, okay, they're earrings. Nope, not quite. When you're talking about Harry and Meghan, anything connected to Diana carries a little more weight. Because these aren't just some random pieces Meghan digged up at a jewelry store 5 minutes before the event. They're connected to Harry's mother. And there is something very human about that. Imagine walking into a major event beside the son of the woman who once wore those earrings, and you're carrying a small piece of that history with you. That's personal, that's family, that's memory. And I think regular people understand that immediately. You don't have to be royal to understand the meaning behind an item that belonged to someone you love. Maybe it's your grandmother's necklace, your father's watch, your mother's ring. Maybe it's an old jacket that somebody refuses to throw away because, no, that was dad's. We've all got that one item in the family. It might be worth $10, it might be worth $10,000, but the price isn't the point, the memory is. That's why I don't look at Meghan wearing Diana's earrings and immediately think, oh, here we go, another royal fashion moment. I see a woman wearing something connected to her husband's mother while standing beside her husband at an event supporting families and children, and suddenly the jewelry has a completely different meaning. There's also something I find interesting about how people react whenever Meghan wears something associated with Diana. Some people immediately want to turn it into a competition. Was Meghan copying Diana? Was she trying to look like Diana? Was she sending a message? Was she trying to make somebody jealous? My goodness, sometimes an earring is just an earring. Relax. Not every sapphire is a 5-part conspiracy. Meghan doesn't need to recreate Diana. She doesn't need to impersonate Diana, and she certainly doesn't need to compete with Diana. Diana was Harry's mother. That's the relationship that matters. Meghan is married to Diana's son. That's it. And if Harry's family passed something meaningful down to him, and he chose to share that meaning with his wife, why should that automatically become some kind of competition? It doesn't have to. In fact, I think there's something quite touching about Meghan wearing those earrings while Harry is right there beside her. Because Harry is the person who knew Diana personally. He doesn't need a newspaper to explain what his mother meant to him. He doesn't need a commentator screaming into a television camera. He lived it. He lost her. He grew up carrying that memory. So when Meghan wears something associated with Diana, I imagine the meaning for Harry is far more personal than whatever nonsense people are arguing about online. And that's another thing I think gets lost when every Sussex appearance becomes a royal sporting event. Sometimes people forget these are actual human beings. Harry isn't just Prince Harry. He's also somebody's son. Meghan isn't just the Duchess of Sussex. She's his wife. And that little detail matters. Because when you see Meghan wearing Diana's earrings, you can look at it as fashion if you want, but you can also look at it as a small family connection, a quiet reminder of somebody who isn't physically there anymore. And I actually prefer that interpretation, because not everything needs to be loud. Not everything needs a dramatic announcement. Sometimes the smallest details say enough. No speech, no big statement, no flashing sign saying, "Look everybody, Diana!" Just the earrings, and Harry standing beside his wife. That's enough. And let's be honest, Meghan looked absolutely stunning. The navy gown, the sapphire earrings, Harry beside her, the whole thing had that polished, grown-up, we're here for a good evening and a good cause energy. And I can already hear the internet detectives. Zoom in, enhance, rotate the image. Somebody's going to inspect that earring like it's the Zapruder film. Please. Sometimes you can just enjoy the picture. But beyond the jokes, there's a bigger point here. Meghan doesn't have to erase Diana from her story in order to be her own person, and she doesn't have to become Diana either. She can be Meghan. She can have her own identity, her own work, her own style, her own causes, while also appreciating the woman who gave birth to the man she loves. Those things can exist together. That's what makes this moment feel genuine to me. It's not about Meghan trying to become Diana. It's about Meghan carrying a little reminder of Diana while standing next to Diana's son. And they're doing it at an event that is focused on helping children and families. Honestly, that's a much nicer story than the endless competition people try to manufacture around these two. Because real life isn't always about beating somebody else. Sometimes it's about remembering the people you love. Sometimes it's about showing up for your friends. Sometimes it's about putting on something meaningful and going out into the world to support a good cause. And sometimes you can look absolutely fabulous while doing it. That's allowed too. So yes, talk about the gown, talk about the jewelry, talk about the red carpet. Meghan looked great, Harry looked great, but don't miss the human details sitting right there in plain sight. Those earrings connected Meghan to Harry's mother, and for one evening, that little piece of Diana's story was right there with them, not as a competition, not as a publicity stunt, not as some desperate attempt to recreate the past, just a small piece of family history worn with meaning.
Now, squaddies, this is the part I really want people to sit with, because Harry and Meghan just walked into a major event in Canada, together, dressed up, looking happy, supporting their friends, supporting a charity, And somehow, people are still acting like these two are supposed to be waiting around for somebody at the palace to tell them when they're allowed to have a successful evening. Come on. Look at what actually happened. Harry and Meghan arrived at the David Foster Foundation's 40th anniversary gala in Victoria, Canada. No palace entourage needed, no royal tour itinerary, no official carriage, no balcony appearance, no announcement from Buckingham Palace telling everybody to pay attention. They just showed up. And guess what? Everybody paid attention anyway. That's the funny part. For years, we've heard versions of the same prediction. Harry and Meghan leave royal duties, they'll disappear. They move away, they'll lose relevance. They build a life outside the institution, they won't be able to attract serious attention. Okay, so explain the red carpet. Because years later, these two walk into a room and suddenly we're talking about them again. That's not because somebody in London handed them a royal schedule. That's because Harry and Meghan themselves are the attraction, and regular people understand this. You don't need your old boss standing behind you to prove you can succeed somewhere else. You don't need the company logo on your shirt to prove you know how to do your job, and you certainly don't need permission from the people you left behind to build something new. That's life. People leave companies, people change careers, people move cities, people start businesses, people build new friendships, people create completely different lives. And eventually, you look around and realize, wait a minute, I'm actually doing all right. That's the energy I'm getting from Harry and Meghan. They're not standing there screaming, look at us, we don't need the palace. They don't have to. Their lives are already showing it. They've built relationships in Canada. They've developed connections in entertainment. They've supported charities. They've created projects. They've maintained friendships. They've developed their own public identity. And now they're walking into events like this as a couple because that's their life. No permission slip required. And I think that's what bothers certain critics. Not that Harry and Meghan are attending a gala, not that Meghan wore a gorgeous gown, not even that Harry looked sharp. It's the fact that the couple can operate completely outside the royal machine and still generate enormous interest. That's the bit people can't seem to process. Because if the palace was supposed to be the magic ingredient, where did the magic go? Harry and Meghan left, the cameras followed. They went to Canada, people watched. They went to America, people watched. They launched projects, people watched. They appeared at charitable events, people watched. They stepped onto this red carpet in Victoria, and here we are talking about it. At some point, you have to stop blaming the couple for attracting attention and ask a very simple question. Maybe people actually want to know what they're doing, and that's perfectly normal. Think about celebrities people follow every day. They don't need an official government title, they don't need a palace announcement, they don't need a ceremonial uniform. People follow them because they're interested in their lives and what they're doing. Harry and Meghan have reached that point where their public identity exists independently. They're Harry and Meghan, not Harry and Meghan plus palace machinery, just Harry and Meghan. And I actually think there's something refreshing about that, because look at this particular night. They weren't there to perform some stiff royal obligation. They were there to celebrate a foundation's 40th anniversary. They were there for people they know. They were there for a cause helping families with children undergoing life-saving organ transplants. They were there as friends, supporters, and a married couple. That's different. And honestly, that's the kind of public appearance that regular people can understand. You know that friend who says, come on, I'm going to this event, you need to be there. You go, you support them, you dress up, you have a good night, you take some pictures, you laugh, you go home. That's life. Harry and Meghan didn't need a royal memo to do that. They didn't need somebody standing behind them whispering, now smile. They're grown adults. They know how to enter a room. And judging from the reaction, they definitely know how to get people talking. Now here's where the critics can get confused. Leaving the institution doesn't mean Harry and Meghan have to disappear. It means they get to decide what their public life looks like. That's a massive difference. They can choose the events, they can choose the causes, they can choose the people they spend time with, they can choose when they want to appear publicly, and they can choose when they want to stay home. That is independence. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing here. Harry and Meghan aren't trying to recreate royal life somewhere else. They're building a life that belongs to them, and that's why this appearance matters. Not because it's the biggest red carpet in the world, not because they need to prove anything, but because it quietly demonstrates something critics have been arguing about for years. Harry and Meghan can walk into a room on their own terms. No palace machinery, no royal schedule, no institution standing behind them, just the two of them. And somehow, the cameras still show up, the headlines still come, the public still watches, and the conversation still starts. So maybe the real lesson here isn't that Harry and Meghan somehow survived without the palace. Maybe it's much simpler. They built a life where they don't need it. And for two people who were told they couldn't make it outside that system, well, I'd say they're doing pretty alright. And squaddies, that's why this red carpet isn't just another glamorous photograph. It's another little reminder that Harry and Meghan are perfectly capable of creating their own moments, their own relationships, their own opportunities, and their own lane. And once you've built your own lane, you don't have to keep looking in the rearview mirror. Thank you all for watching, squaddies. I am your host, Miles. Hope you enjoyed this podcast. Catch you all in the next one. Goodbye.